You're listening to the Talk of Shame podcast. This is the world's most provocative and outrageously fun podcast, hosted by the Johnster. This podcast is not for the faint of heart, as we cover a variety of topics and talk about pretty much any fucking thing that we like. If you're easily offended and or get offended by strong language and adult themes, then this is not the podcast for you. So please don't take anything in this podcast too seriously, because we certainly don't. Now fasten those big old headphones on real tight. Turn up those speakers until the windows crack and your neighbors call the cops, and get ready to enjoy the Talk of Shame. And remember to hit the subscribe button wherever you are listening to the podcast so that you can stay up to date with new episodes.
Welcome to episode number 11 of Talk of Shame podcast. My name is Barry John, and in this week's episode, we really do have a fascinating guest who, she's an inspiration, the bravery she's shown, and to be so open about this. Her name's Jennifer Vaughan, and Jennifer contracted HIV and then went on to contract full-blown AIDS, which is everyone's worst nightmare. And she talks so openly about it. And she did this through no fault of her own. And I'm going to let Jennifer tell the story in her own words. But if you like this content, please make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you're listening, because it really does make a difference to me. And then please make sure you follow me on Instagram at Talk of Shame Podcast, or my own personal Instagram is its_Barry John. Now enjoy this great show. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm doing well. Is it Barry or Barry John?
It's Barry John.
It's Barry John. That's probably very Irish, huh?
Would you believe I was actually called after a Welsh rugby player, Jennifer? Yeah, so it's definitely a little bit of an unusual name.
Oh, it is unusual. I wasn't sure if that was like the common name in Ireland or not.
No, definitely not. But thank you so much for joining us. I very much appreciate you taking the time out, and I really do appreciate it. Okay.
Of course, no problem at all.
Brilliant. So I suppose great. So I suppose just to start us off, if you can just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your backstory and who exactly you are.
Sure. So my name is Jennifer Vaughan. I'm 49 years old. I'm a mother of three. I have a 19-year-old daughter, 16-year-old daughter, and a 12-year-old son. And I live in California, born and raised here my whole life. I was married up until 2008, went through a divorce, and, I was a single mom for up until now. I'm recently married, but remarried. But back in 2016, I'd been, 8 years into my, being a single mother and dating and all of that. Yeah. I had been dating my current husband for about a year, and he's from Montreal, and we met here in California. We've kind of had a long distance relationship for the past 5 years, but we make it work. He's here during the winters. So we had been dating for about a year. And he was out here for his second winter with me, and we just kind of kept seeing each other back and forth through the summertime. And while he's working in Montreal, and I just kept getting sick. I don't know. I wasn't feeling well a lot, and so I went to the doctor several times while he'd been here, and I just thought I had some virus, and I thought I honestly had swallowed a parasite in the ocean because we were surfing. He got me into surfing, and there'd been a lot of storms recently, and I thought, it must have churned up something in the water. I swallowed it, and I'm just sick from head to toe because of this parasite. And I'm like, they're gonna find it, they're gonna give me the right medication to kill that particular parasite, I'm gonna be all better. And so it was about a month of just me feeling really fatigued. It was just getting worse. And I kept going to the doctor, and they couldn't figure anything out. And they finally took blood. And when they did, my red and white blood cells were off. And it looked like I had diabetes. My blood sugar was weird. And I honestly can't remember to this day if it was high or low, but I think it was high. And so anyways, they were concerned and they said, that's abnormal. You need to come back in. We need to do more. So they sent me to an infectious disease doctor. And he said, at that point, I had been getting, I was feverish like through the night. I was getting fevers. I was having night sweats. I was achy from head to toe. Like I was in the bathtub constantly just trying to deal with, my body was aching like crazy. Headaches and just no appetite. I hadn't eaten in like weeks. I was like losing weight. And so he said, I'm just going to test you for everything. Yeah. And he had to ask if he could test me for HIV because they do have to ask that. But that was the last thing on my mind. And I said, of course, yeah, test me for everything. I thought I had even possibly cancer or lupus or.
Yeah, it must be very scary when you don't know.
Yeah, we just wanted an answer. And so I took all that blood, and it was kind of funny because I was documenting everything that was happening for my Facebook. So I had taken pictures of the blood that was sitting there. I was like, wow, that's a lot of blood, and then like not even 3 hours later, I get a call from the doctor, and I had asked him to call me because I said, if you find out anything, please call and let me know what you found out, because we were going into the weekend. I think, or was that it? No, it was a Monday. And I just said, I wanted, I just need to know if you find anything, please, because I'm losing sleep now. I don't know what's wrong with me. And so, yeah, about 3 hours later, he called and gave me the news that I had tested positive for the HIV antibody. And in that moment, I felt like my life was over. I mean, I was looking at my boyfriend of 1 year just going, well, that's done. And wow, I really friggin' messed up.
Yeah, obviously coming from somebody who obviously doesn't have HIV or whatever, and obviously this is obviously the way you must have felt beforehand as well, that obviously it's everyone's worst nightmare. And then
totally.
And then to be told that you have HIV and that you've tested positive, like what kind of emotions were you going through?
Well, the first thing is you think HIV is it's dirty. I mean, you're disgusting. You're like you've done something really seedy and gross and dirty to get this. So, it's like, I feel like, oh my God, all my, not secrets, but it's like, I had dated and I thought, oh my God, I look like instantly a whore. It's like, what have I been up to? My God, what has this woman been doing? So that completely like filled me. And then I'm looking at Eric thinking, well, obviously this man who finds me so attractive, that's gone. He's not, how could he be attracted to somebody who has this? Like all these things are hitting me at once. I'm thinking, am I going to be able to work again? Is the whole town going to find out about me? Are my kids going to be like ostracized? Everything hit me up. And, how long do I have to live? Am I going to live very long? All these things are hitting me. And the worst part is that I'm really sick in that moment. So to have all of those things hit you, and this happens to a lot of people when they are diagnosed because they don't know they have it, and they're at the point where they're sick and they finally figure it all out. And by the time sometimes they figure it out, these people, like myself, were sick. And so the news on top of that it's so hard to take it all in at once. It really is. And
Jesus,
I just felt like everything just felt black. Like everything felt black. Yeah.
I bet. Okay, so from there, what happened next? I mean, you're obviously in shock. Your whole world is basically just after being turned upside down and ripped apart. And I suppose for everything where you would have had, I suppose, dreams and aspirations and stuff like that, and you're thinking now, like you might be able to fulfill any of these. And I can imagine it's absolutely terrifying, right?
Totally. You think like, your life's over. Everything that you thought you were going to do, you're not going to do anymore. And nor you don't deserve it either. That's the other thing. You don't feel like you deserve it. And you also feel like because you have this, in the beginning, you feel like, well, you deserve to be sick all the time and you're a bad person. You did something really bad. So this is what you get. Like, these are all the things that you're thinking. I don't deserve anything good anymore because clearly I did something really wrong because I have this.
Yeah. It's kind of like a shame.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So much shame right in the beginning. But my daughter came down quickly after we got the diagnosis. I have to say, Eric didn't think it was HIV at first, or he was kind of in denial. He thought, no way. And I'm really interesting, but I thought it had to be because everything was making sense. We looked it up on the internet. I remember I couldn't even pick my phone up, and I was so in shock. I couldn't even look anything up. And my daughter starts looking up HIV, and she goes, Mom, people don't die from this today. Like, she was the first one to get on the phone and start like Googling it. And she's like, no, this isn't like what it used to be.
Yeah.
And then Eric thought, Eric was like, God, did I give this to you? Like, he's thinking maybe he has it. So he tested the next morning, and the only reason he thought that was because he'd had strep throat about a year prior, and he thought maybe that had been HIV. Now we've learned so much about HIV, and it's really, really, truly not something that heterosexual men get from women. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And I talk about this a lot in my story and my journey. But Eric did not get HIV from me. He had been with me without condoms for 1 year, close to a year. You know, we had the long distance, but
Sure.
you know, we were very active, and he does not have it for me. It's very difficult for it to get inside of a man from a woman. It
Yeah,
just is.
absolutely.
So it's easily contracted through, you know, other ways, but I can get into that later. But anyways, he was negative. You know, he tested the next day, and then we moved forward from there, and I started seeing doctors and getting my stuff, my shit together. But go ahead.
Sure. No, sorry. So in terms of, obviously, I suppose a question which I'm thinking, and I suppose everyone who's listening is thinking is, I mean, when you're, I mean, look, we're all adults, and obviously people can sleep with whoever they want and whatever. But obviously when something like that happens, you're kind of thinking, who did I get this from? And how did this happen to me? Because, I mean, surely that must have been going through your head. And did you have any idea who you had got it from? Or
I did. It took me about 30 minutes to, I say narrow it down, and then people hear that and they're like, my God, how many people were you with? I'm like, well, I mean, I had been single for 8 years. I had dated
but
people,
that's okay.
So now I had.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, and I'm not going to feel bad about that. It's life. I was,
absolutely.
You know, I took really good care of my kids, but I dated. So there was one person in particular who had used needles in his past, and he had actually lived with me. We were together. Not that it mattered. I mean, I still, like, people don't want to feel shame even for a one night stand, and they shouldn't. But you know, we'd been together. He was a boyfriend, and but he stood out to me because I knew a couple things about him. He had used needles in his past, but he thought he was negative. Like, we had this conversation, he and I, and he was certain he had tested before we were together. And we had been together in the past, back in 2009. I had, honestly, it's kind of weird, but I had tested for HIV in 2011 because I worked at a doctor's office, and I found my records. I had tested negative then, so I didn't get it from him in 2009, but we had we got back together again, and we made it more permanent in 2013. And but in that time in between, he had contracted it, didn't know it, and he gave it to me. And he also had a fascination with trans women. He says that's not how he got it, but he definitely did. And those are super high risk factors: drugs, needles, and men having sex with men. Those are the two highest. So I knew right away this had to be it. I did some research through Facebook and found a relative of his, because we were no longer connected. We had blocked each other. It was kind of like that sort of ending. And I got a hold of his mom. I had found the numbers to get a hold of, like, his family, and the first words out of her mouth were, we gave the clinic your number. And so I said, has he been sick? And so turns out people in his family have thought he had cancer. They knew that he had been sick, but nobody really knew what it was. So when I spoke to his mom, she confirmed that, yes, he tested positive about 2 months after we split up. And what he did, was the right thing to do, he gave my name and number to the clinic. No one has to actually call that person and say, hey, I exposed you to HIV unknowingly. It's a great way to, like the clinic will handle it. They'll call and they'll say, hey, you were probably exposed to HIV. You need to go test. Well, what happened was, and I do truly believe that he gave my name and number. There's just no reason for him not to. I was the last person he'd been with. They didn't get a hold of me for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I never knew I had it. So I went 2.5 years with it getting worse and worse. And it did end up being at a level of AIDS by the time I found out. It only took 2.5 years, but that can happen. And one other thing
sorry to cut across you. So you had then basically quickly transitioned from having HIV to going into having full-blown AIDS.
Well, I had HIV. I contracted it in 2013. And by the time I found out, I had AIDS. So I would say, you know, it took
Oh
2.5
God.
years for it to get to that point. What I wanted to say is that he thought that the clinic must have contacted me. I tested negative, and he never heard from me again. So that he was very surprised when he got the phone call from me.
Yeah.
He felt horrible. He had no idea. So,
Okay.
it did progress within those 2.5 years to that, just meaning that my CD4 count, we all have a CD4 count. It's just basically this number that's given to our immune system. And like you as a healthy adult, you probably have like about a 1,500, 1,700,
Yeah.
and anything under 200 is considered an AIDS diagnosis. So I was under 200, I was at 84. And at that point, your immune system is so compromised that it just can't fight anything off. And so I got what was really common. I got the really common pneumonia that people get when they have HIV, and it's called PCP pneumonia. I think it's pneumocystic. And anyways, that was the one I had, and it's like I was diagnosed with HIV, and I had all the symptoms for HIV, which were like, you know, the nausea, the night sweats, the fevers, the achy joints, and then all of a sudden I start getting this little cough, like literally days after I was diagnosed. And within 5 days, I'm diagnosed with pneumonia and AIDS. So it was like, that was another blow after the diagnosis. It was like, my freaking God, what else could go wrong?
And I suppose, I mean, growing up, we would have seen, when we hear the word AIDS, you think of Freddie Mercury, you think of Eazy-E, you think of a lot of these people, celebrities who've got it, and people died. So when you're thinking AIDS, you're thinking death, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, they told me quickly when they got my numbers, you do have AIDS, but you know, this is going to turn around. This is going to be a distant memory. And if it had been 10 to 15 years ago, we probably would have given you about 2 months to live, but it's not like that today. They're like, you're going to start taking this medication. And, you know, you have to clear up the opportunistic infection first. That's real common. And that you don't even get to take the HIV medication. And, you know, I wanted to, like, I couldn't wait to start taking it because I knew my viral load was really high. It was 507,000. Now my viral load is under 20. So when they have a little drop of my blood, they either can't find the virus at all, or it may be a number under 20. But whatever it is, I'm considered undetectable, which means I cannot transmit this in any way. And any man or, you know, that sleeps with men that are undetectable, they cannot transmit it. It's called U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. Okay. And it went hand in hand with my diagnosis, honestly. It's a whole part of my journey, but yeah, we're really excited about that information, and I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, because honestly, before I had seen your videos on YouTube, Jennifer, I mean, and I don't think I'm alone on this. And I'm sure before you were diagnosed as well, you probably were in the same boat, that I think people are just very ignorant to it. And people just think, okay, HIV, AIDS, it's like, it's game over. It's the worst possible thing that can happen. And people don't realize these things. And that's why I found, when I was listening to your videos, I found it so informative that I said that this is such a good story, that I mean, you can actually, by doing what you're doing on your YouTube channel and by talking here on my podcast, I mean, I'm sure there's people listening and people are learning things that they just didn't know, because, I mean, that's certainly the case from myself, you know?
Oh, it's unreal how much misinformation is still out there today. It's crazy. So what people don't know is that the medication really started changing in the early 2000s, and it became a controllable, manageable condition. And it's like, I say this a lot, and it kind of ruffles some feathers, but to me, it's nothing. It's not a big deal at all. Like, I take a pill a day and that's it. I just went on with my life. But I didn't know that in the beginning, that it was going to be like that. But it's truly, that's what it is. And it's this virus. I did a video recently on what it is in my body today. When people think of somebody with HIV, they think they are head to toe HIV. It's just brewing through their blood, and that's not what it is. This medication that I take is so amazing. It's 3 drugs in one, and it basically just wipes out the virus in every stage of replication possible. So the virus never gets a chance to do anything to me. It's laying dormant. It's not even in my blood anymore. When they test me, it's not showing up. Like, the finest test can't find it. So what it is, it's these little viral particles are hiding in some cells. And the medication, unfortunately, can't get to these dormant particles. And they're working on ways to get that, because if they could get to those particles, I would be cured. But
Sure,
because they
sure.
can't get to those little hidden particles, if I were to stop taking my medication, those viral particles that are hidden would go, oh, hell yeah, I'm waking up and I'm going to start replicating again. And I'm going to try to attack this immune system again. It would take time. It doesn't happen overnight. But because it never gets that opportunity, I feel like it's crazy, but I feel like I'm virus free because I don't feel
Yeah.
anything from this. Nothing. I'm the same person I was before. I don't feel sick, nothing. I'm never sick, actually. People
Yeah.
always think I'm more susceptible to being sick, and I'm not. My CD4 count is now at 500, which is fine. Anything over 200 is not considered AIDS anymore, or like a risk for getting opportunistic infection. So I'm normal, as far
Sure,
as that
sure.
goes.
And I suppose a big question that I'd have is obviously the person who infected you. I mean, what kind of a relationship do you have with him now, or is that something that you acknowledge was a mistake, or is that something you can forgive, or?
Oh yeah, I was never mad at him. I mean, I knew that he took the right precautions as far as like giving my number and name. And, we've had some conversations. I haven't talked to him since 2018, I think.
Okay.
Just no need. There's no need to. I mean, we're not like friendly, chummy or anything, but I mean,
Sure.
and it was a relationship that was over. It was more just kind of like, I don't know, just like I think I needed some confirmation that maybe he didn't do something behind my back when he was
Yeah,
living
yeah.
here with me, which like, I'm like, did something like that happen? And he assured me it didn't. And I have to say, he was not doing well when he was living with me. He was like having a lot of digestion problems. He was always in the bathroom. He had diarrhea all the time. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of a baby. Like, it was really annoying, honestly. I
Yeah.
was like, I had no idea that he was like suffering from that, and he didn't either. And to tell you the truth, he had no money at the time, and he said, if you want me to test for HIV, I can, but I know, and I got to tell you, he is, I don't, he probably will not hear this, but he's a big hypochondriac, and like, if he had had
Yeah.
HIV and knew it, he never would have, like, he would have been whining about it constantly. He
Yeah,
definitely didn't know
yeah,
he had it.
yeah.
And he did test for it because I thought I would have to pay for it myself. I was already a struggling single mother with 3 kids. I'm like, I'm not going to go buy your test. I'm like, you're fine. If you think you tested for it and you're negative, I'm sure you're negative. Like, it's so stupid. Like, I was so naive, and I thought, and really what happened to me is really uncommon. Like, it was really rare. This is not something that, I know my aunt had it, my cousin had it, my best friend from elementary. No, I know nobody who has this.
I
This
know it's
is
very
very rare.
rare.
Yeah, so this isn't like, it freaks people out sometimes when they hear my story because they're like, oh my gosh, she's this housewife from California, and if she got it done, it's probably a really good chance like it's really common. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm just the rare one that got it, and I decided to be vocal about it.
Yeah,
And kind of like,
and honestly, fair play to you for doing that, because I think from seeing your videos and hearing the way you talk about it and the way you're so open about it, it does remove the stigma that's there, and I suppose it educates people. And I think, look, hats off to you for doing that, Jennifer. But in terms of your friends and your family, because obviously once you've got this, did you find that kind of society was kind of looking at you a little bit different, or?
well, I always tell people, so what happened was I just decided I want to be as open about this as possible. I decided that very early on. I was like, I don't want people finding, because I had told too many people kind of right off the bat, like family and friends and even neighbors. I was like, you're not going to believe this, but I have HIV, I have AIDS. Like, can you believe this? It was kind of so like absurd that I told people. And so like after a while, I was like, I've told too many people. There's no way to make this a secret. And it's not like me to keep stuff secretive. I could not live that way. And I hate that so many people have to live this way. They do. So many people I know do not share this information because of stigma. And I decided early on that I didn't want to deal with that. And so I thought, I'm going to be as open as possible. And, I had a lot of things in my favor. I had my now husband, boyfriend supporting me. My kids
Yeah.
supported me. My family supported me. Nobody made me feel disgusting. They didn't. And everybody was really great and supportive about me making a YouTube video. I decided I need to explain this in a 30-minute format. So I made a YouTube video to put on my Facebook,
Yeah.
just to explain it to my high school friends and my family, like what really happened, because they had only known it was pneumonia. So I made that video, and then all of a sudden on YouTube, it started getting a bunch of views, and then it just gradually organically turned into a channel. I'd never planned on doing that at all. That was really kind of crazy, but yeah, so now it's a channel. And so as far as like people having a bad reaction, it was really YouTubers, people that would comment on my videos. And that was where I saw the disgust for this virus and how people hate you for it and they judge you immediately. And now it made me realize, you know, the beginning was rough getting those comments. I'd get up in the morning and know there'd
What
be
kind of
comments
things were they saying, Jennifer?
Oh, you're a whore. You should go on an island somewhere and get away from society and die.
Yeah.
You should be dead. Like, what is
and
your,
this is through no fault of your own as well, which is I mean, it's not like you were living this crazy lifestyle. Not that it's anyone's fault anyway, but it's not like you were living this absolutely off the wall lifestyle. You were doing no different to what 99 or 100% of people are doing anyway, you know.
Yeah, they're like, you're a walking biohazard. You should have worn a condom. You both should have tested before you started having sex. Like, all these critiques about like throwing, you know, rocks at glass houses. I was like, wow, like everybody's so perfect apparently, and I didn't know.
Fuck people. People. I mean, one thing, and I've talked about it a few times in this podcast. People are unbelievable. People, as you said, throwing stones at people, and people have a go at people behind hidden Facebook accounts or Instagram accounts or YouTube things or whatever. And the funny thing, what I find with that is these people never would say it to your face either, and they just find it acceptable where they can go and say something to somebody like that online. And unfortunately, we're living in a society now where people are taking their lives over this. So I think that definitely needs to change for sure.
Oh, for sure. God, yeah. I just remember my heart racing before I'd open the comments just to see what had come in through the night. And I'd be like holding my breath. And like that, thankfully, I've gotten much tougher skin over the years. And I get really similar comments that come up that are like, yeah, I've been there, done that. Like, it doesn't hit me anymore because I realize it's just complete ignorance. It's people not understanding, and people, when they're scared of something, it makes them angry. People are mad because they're scared because they don't get it. And so they lash out at my videos, and it's like, so I get all that. You know what hurts me more is when someone says I'm just fucking ugly. You know, like that hurts me more than like, don't be mean to me.
Yeah, you know, or for like, sure.
Up on my eyebrows for a while. I'm like, God, like, don't make fun of the way I look, but
yeah, I know it's not nice. But I suppose that kind of leads to a question of, I mean, obviously you are super open about it, and you seem like you're a very strong woman. How did you get to that stage from being diagnosed with AIDS, where you're feeling like this is the end of the world, and now you've got to this really positive mindset? I just find that remarkable, and I find that really inspirational. Like, how did you get there?
Oh, it was easy. You know why? Because I felt like I was dying, and so the second it started to turn around and I could breathe again and felt like I wanted to put food in my mouth and I wanted to walk outside with my dog, I was so freaking grateful for like feeling normal. Like, I went easily 5 weeks not feeling normal. Like, I was so sick. So when that started changing and I started getting back to remembering how it felt to be normal, it was like, and I'm like, this is all it is. Like, I get to be myself again. Like, I couldn't believe it. So I was so happy and thankful to be better and to feel normal that that whole, all the shame melted off. It really did. As I felt better, all the shame I felt melted away, and like all the disgust I had for like, how did I let this happen, and all those things, they really went hand in hand. So as I was physically getting better, I was letting go of all of that crap and just going, holy shit, this is not that big of a deal. This is like nothing. It's literally a virus like the flu, except it's totally controlled and I have no effect. Like, it doesn't affect me in any way.
Yeah,
it's weird to say that I have infected. It really is weird to say that I have it, because I don't feel anything. Yeah,
absolutely. Because now, like, just seeing from your Instagram and seeing from your YouTube channel, you seem to lead a very active life, and you seem to be, I mean, you seem to be active more than most people. So like, it seems like you're absolutely flying now, which is great to see.
Yeah, my husband is really a very active 51-year-old. So it really
Yeah.
his influence. He got me into. I've lived near the ocean since I don't even know 1997. I mean, I spent maybe 17 years not even getting anything but my toes wet. And he's like, he meets me and he's from Canada and he came out here on a surf trip and he's like, no, we got to get you in the water. And I fell in love with surfing. He got me into skateboarding.
Yeah.
He taught me how to snowboard. I just picked that up last winter. So it's like I'm doing all these. It's kind of my personality. I love doing all these things. I don't think I would have done it without him being there and being really excited about these things. But I'm never going to go to a skate park with a bunch of teenage boys by myself. But my husband was into it, and so I followed him. And
Good on you.
I
That's
get it. This is really freaking fun, and you learn a trick, and you're like, I cannot believe I was able to do that. And I'm in my late 40s. It's like stuff like
yeah.
that. So it's really addicting, and oh my God, he's 51. I'm going to be 50 this year, and it's like, you do look at life, and you're like, shit, how many more years do we have? I hope it's okay that I've sworn. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Trust me, they've heard worse on this podcast.
Okay. Like, how many more years do I have, where it's going to be ridiculous, and I'm not going to, I can't be 70 years old out there on a skateboard, and I know that life goes so fast. So it's like, I just want to take every moment that I have to be as active as I can and have a great time. I mean,
I'd say going through an experience like that, which I'd imagine you thought that your life was going to end prematurely, that I suppose it gives you a new appreciation for life. It just has to give you a new appreciation for life.
Totally.
Yeah.
And and I've got this amazing.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I'm just going to say I have this amazing platform now where people are actually watching, and it's like I just love showing them, look, HIV does not define me. It doesn't hold me back in any way, nor does my age, nor does my gender. Freaking get out there and live your damn life, because this is not, you only get one life. Do it, So
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be a victim of this. No freaking way. And I wish no one else would be either, because they don't need to be. It's all mental.
Absolutely.
Really
and in terms of, I suppose, there's probably a lot of people listening that I suppose you could kind of educate on this. What kind of stigmas do you feel that you need to smash regarding HIV and take out of people's mindset?
Oh, so many, my God. Well, first of all, it's sexually transmitted. You can't get it from silverware or the bathroom or sharing food with somebody. I did a deal with my kid where he ate a bagel or I ate it and then he ate it, just to show, so you can't get it that way. It's a very intricate virus that takes really a perfect storm sexually to get it from one person to another. Sure. And it has to be deeply planted in the bloodstream. It's very difficult to transmit it from one person to another. So obviously anal sex is an easier route because of the nature of that behavior, that kind of sex. There's tears and the concentration of HIV is higher in semen and blood versus vaginal secretion. So women transmitting is very uncommon, and it's not talked about enough, and it kind of makes me crazy that we get a bad rap with HIV. Not everybody should get a bad rap, but I wish it was more well known how uncommon it is for women, and how we take the blame a lot for bisexual men who don't want anyone to know that they say they got it from a woman. This happens a lot, and it turns out that that's not the case at all. So, I mean, I've done so much research on it. So that's something that's high on my list of things that I want people to know, but also that women have babies that are HIV positive every day with no issues at all. HIV is not transmitted through the womb. It's transmitted through the birth canal. So it gets in, the babies are really fragile, and it gets in through, their orifices in their face, their eyes and stuff like that. So babies, if a mother didn't know she had HIV, and it came through the birth canal, then that's when it happens. But we're all tested when we're pregnant now. Sure. Of course, there's a rare opportunity that somebody can contract it during pregnancy and not know it if they didn't test later on. That's always possible. And then the baby would get it, not always. And it's not always a for sure thing. They can come through the birth canal. Mom could have a really high viral load. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But with today's medication and everything, I know lots of women that have HIV negative babies, no problem at all. This is the norm. That's the norm. You take your medication, the babies come out, and there's no problem. There just isn't.
Sure.
And then also, of course, you equals you. When you're undetectable, this is the information that got out in 2016. I was part of the, kind of the announcing of this through social media. And it's now, you know, CDC backs it. It's like in the Lancet. It's, you know, every health organization supports U equals U, that when people are on treatment, their viral load is undetectable. They can't transmit it sexually. It's totally proven. There's been enough studies done. It just, those studies weren't being talked about. And so Bruce Richmond, the man who like decided to get this out there, he and I talked early on, and he talked to a lot of other people that were out in social media with their open status, and we just yelled about it as much as we could to let people know, and we're still doing it. We're still doing as much as we can, because it helps stigma,
Of
and
course.
it helps people test if they know that there is a lot of people won't test for fear that they're going to have it, thinking their life is over, and it doesn't have to be at all. My life is super normal.
And let's say if somebody, I mean, there's a lot of people probably listening and thinking, I know by listening to you reading out some of the people who are sending you messages, and some of them send you in to what you to what a lot of people would seem like some ridiculous questions, that they think they might have contracted HIV 5 years ago and they were tested a month ago and it's negative, but they still think they have it, and these kind of crazy questions. Like, in terms of timelines, like, how long after does HIV actually show up in your blood?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So when you're exposed to HIV, let's say it did make it into your body, it would take 2 weeks. It would take 2 weeks to show any kind of symptoms. So people sometimes say, oh my God, I had like a sore throat the next day. I'm sure I have HIV. No. It takes 2 weeks for symptoms to show. And they basically are flu-like symptoms and sore throats and all that. To show on a test, like an antibody test. So an antibody is looking for what your body makes to fight the virus. And so the antibody test takes basically by 28 days after the exposure, 98% of the virus or the antibodies would show up on most people. They say it can happen where it could take up to 3 months, but that's just like 2% of people, like, or it happens 2% of the time. It's really, you know, I really don't see that happening at all. Like, within a month of the exposure, you know, you're pretty much golden. And, you know, they always tell you to test again at 3 months just to be on the safe side. You know, those that were having, I mean, I have people that say it's always the sex worker thing. I get so many hetero men. I had sex with a sex worker with a condom, but I have a sore throat. I'm sure I have HIV. I'm like, oh my God. Well, first of all, my vagina is no different than that sex worker's vagina. I had AIDS and my husband didn't get it for me. So it's like, you know, I'm sorry, but you still have like a very low risk of getting it from a woman, regardless of her occupation. And then you had a condom on top of it, and you still think you have HIV, and you've been testing negative. Like, come on, like, let us go. But yeah, I see that a lot. People, like, they are, I don't know, I think there's more psychological, like, mental health going on, and they need to see somebody, like, for mental health. Really, I think there's a lot of people that deal with phobias, and there's for sure an HIV phobia out there, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
strong.
Absolutely. And plus, like, I know one thing that you kind of touched on your YouTube channel was that obviously some people might be, I suppose, experimenting with the same sex, and there's still this kind of, I suppose, people are scared to come out and admit that they might be experimenting as a homosexual or whatever, and that oftentimes it can be passed that way, and then but people won't admit it, and then they're kind of blaming it on females then, you know?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. I think the shame of being a hetero male and living a down low life, which is having sex with men on the down low, or even just being bisexual, there's probably, I think, more shame and stigma associated with that than there is with
Which is
HIV.
wrong too, right?
Yeah. It's like well, I mean, would I love it if my husband was having sex with men on the side? No,
of course,
I'd be devastated. So it's like, I get why the secret is kept, and I get why there's I get why men are into it too. I mean, I love men. Yeah, I get it. I get why you guys are interesting, for sure. You guys got things happening that we don't have happening. So I get why men get confused or whatever, you know, and it's like, but it is for women. We don't want our men to be bisexual. We don't want them to be with men. So I get why they live these, because of so many factors, because of religion, because of other family pressures. Like they're going to live a hetero lifestyle until they go to their grave. They're going to say they were with a woman if they got HIV. So it's like, I don't think it's impossible or anything. I definitely think it can happen. but I think it's so uncommon. I think more stories that you don't see a lot of hetero men anyways with HIV, but most of the time I hear that information comes out later or whatever. But it's hard because I'm frustrated because I'm on the other end of it where I'm trying to defend these women that get blamed for it, and and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I have a group for HIV positive women, and more often than not they have. Well, the real proof is that they are diagnosed and they find out their partners don't have it, and they've been with them for so many years, and they're like, wow, I don't even know how I didn't give it to them. And I'm like, well, that's the proof. Like the same thing happened to me and Eric. And if you don't live that, you can't really get how it really is very difficult for a woman to give it to a man.
Yeah.
But there's so much wrapped up into it.
Sure. And okay, if any of our listeners are listening to you now, and if they want to go on and have a look at your channel, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Well, I always tell the easiest way is just to go to YouTube and put in Jennifer HIV, and you'll find me, because my last name is Vaughan, but no one ever spells it right. It's Vaughan.
It's an Irish name.
It is. I know. In fact, it's so crazy. I connected with a Jennifer Vaughan in Ireland before my diagnosis, and I was like, we kind of became like friends. Yeah, she worked at a pub, and then she watched my story come out through my Facebook and my YouTube, and she's been a sister of mine. I feel like I've got it. Like I feel like she's my twin out there, but she's much younger and she's blonde. But it's really cute. So I've got my Jennifer Vaughan out there in Ireland, and I was like so connected. It's like super. It's neat. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, they just. They just look up Jennifer and HIV, you'll find me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
Instagram, I fixed the Vaughan to make it easier. It's just VON girl, so Vaughan girl 24. So that's my Instagram.
Gotcha.
Feel free to join there.
Well, Jennifer, listen, I genuinely admire your bravery to talk so openly about this. And I really do think you help so many people. And I think you're an inspiration to these people who are, somebody might be diagnosed with HIV and they're obviously going through an incredibly dark period in their life. And I think listening to somebody like yourself actually shows that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can actually live basically a perfectly healthy life after all of this, and that it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. So I do admire you so much for that, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. And I suppose, is there anything else that you'd like to say to the listeners?
That's all I can think of. No, I feel like I'm a win box. I can talk forever, but no, I'm super happy to have this platform, and I'll talk till I'm blue in the face just to make sure people really get what this is today. And I got anybody I can help. It blows my mind, this journey I've been on. I had no idea that I'd be helping people, and it's just incredible. Like, I pinch myself going, is this really my life? Like, there's people that contact me that tell me they were going to kill themselves until they saw my videos. It's like, it's unreal. And it's such an amazing feeling. So happy that we have social media and we have this ability to help people from across the world. You just don't know who you're going to reach. It's amazing. Yeah. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, listen, thank you so much. You didn't have to come on. And I listen, if yourself and your partner ever come over to Ireland, feel free to reach out, and I definitely owe you a drink. Okay.
Oh, sounds great.
All right.
Okay. Well,
okay.
Hey,
thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. Bye. I want to thank Jennifer again for coming on to the show. That was an absolutely brilliant, and I suppose just a really fascinating insight into the life of somebody who has contracted something that I think all of us hope we never contract ourselves. So it's something that really is scary. But thank you so much for that, Jennifer. Again, if you enjoyed this content, again, please make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you're listening, and make sure you follow me on Instagram at its_BarryJohn or Talk of Shame podcast. Thank you so much, and see you next week. Have a great week.